Beyond the Gates spoilers tease that a shocking twist upends everything when Martin vanishes without warning, triggering an emotional wildfire that rips through the lives of everyone close to him. The first hints of unraveling appeared after the sudden and mysterious death of Kenny, a tragedy that seemed to cut deeper than most realized. At first, it was Smitty who stood quietly at the edge of the funeral service, his jaw clenched, refusing to shed a single tear. Martin stayed further back, surrounded by whispers. Kenny's death had unlocked a secret Martin had been hiding for years, one that not only fractured his relationship with Smitty, but detonated it entirely. Smitty discovered the truth in the most devastating way, through Kenny's journal, discovered in a box of old vinyls that Smitty had meant to donate. Tucked between liner notes and faded photos, Kenny had written about his suspicions. About Martin. About the night something went wrong. The betrayal cut deep. Smitty, feeling hollowed out by lies, demanded that Martin move out of the house they once shared. There was no argument. Martin packed his things in silence. But from that moment, any civility between them was gone. Every accidental encounter since had been a time bomb waiting to go off. And then came the Dupree family concert. The evening was meant to be a tribute. A reunion. But like everything touched by secrets, it turned volatile. Smitty hadn't planned to attend, but when he saw Martin's name on the guest list, he showed up with more fury than fanfare. Dressed in a sharp blazer, his posture rigid, Smitty marched through the venue as though hunting something. Or someone. Martin was already there, speaking to Sharon Winger near the soundboard. He hadn't noticed Smitty's arrival. Samantha did. Her eyes widened, and she tried to intercept him. But it was too late. The moment Smitty spotted Martin, he beelined through the crowd. The confrontation began with words, laced in venom. Smitty accused Martin of lying not only to him, but to everyone who trusted him. Martin fired back, trying to stay composed, but his restraint was already cracking. "You don't know everything," he said. That was the trigger. Smitty, fists clenched, grabbed a nearby water bottle and dumped it over Martin's head. Laughter and gasps rang out. Martin froze, wiping his face slowly. Samantha stepped between them, pleading. But it didn't matter. Martin snapped. With a roar, he raised his arm, swinging towards Smitty. His hand never made it. Samantha, lunging to stop him, took the full force of the slap. Her head jerked sideways. Blood dripped from her nose onto her satin blouse. Everything stopped. Martin was horrified. So was Smitty. But the silence lasted only seconds before Smitty exploded. He shouted that Martin was a monster, a coward. Samantha tried to speak, but Smitty was out of control. He grabbed a chair metal, folding, heavy, and hurled it. It struck Martin on the side of the head with a sickening thud. Martin collapsed immediately. Security rushed in. Guests screamed. Someone called 911. Smitty didn't run. He stood over Martin's body, shaking, his hands covered in blood that wasn't his. At the hospital, the diagnosis was grim. A skull fracture. Internal bleeding. Martin was placed into a medically induced coma. The doctors didn't sugarcoat it. Recovery, if it came, would be long and uncertain. The brain trauma had been severe. Samantha, bruised and emotionally shattered, sat beside his bed every day. Despite the pain he caused, something kept pulling her back. Maybe it was guilt. Or unfinished conversations. Or the fear that if she didn't show up now, she might never forgive herself. Smitty, meanwhile, disappeared. Rumors swirled that he'd been arrested. Others claimed he'd left town. But the truth was more complicated. Smitty checked himself into a private rehab facility, one that specialized not just in substance recovery, but in managing explosive rage. He'd watched the footage of the concert 100 times, and each time, the same question haunted him. What had he become? The showrunners leaned into the chaos. News of Martin's condition broke in the tabloids. Social media was a firestorm of speculation. Some fans called for Smitty's arrest. Others defended him, citing emotional trauma and betrayal. A small but vocal group insisted Martin deserved worse. The writers, emboldened by the passionate response, expanded the story arc. Flashbacks to Martin and Kenny's final encounter were woven into upcoming episodes. The scenes were raw, painful. They showed Martin hiding things, yes, but also protecting someone. Kenny had been spiraling, lost in a series of dangerous choices. Martin's lie, it turned out, wasn't to cover his own guilt. It was to honor a dying request. But Smitty never got that version of the truth. With Martin in a coma and Smitty in isolation, secondary characters rose. Sharon Winger took a firm stance, publicly denouncing the violence while also refusing to condemn Smitty outright. Grief breaks people differently, she told reporters. Nicole began investigating what had really happened between Martin and Kenny. She dug through emails, phone logs, even Kenny's old voicemail recordings. One message stood out. Kenny's voice was weak, hesitant. "If anything happens to me, it's not Martin's fault. I pushed too far. I made choices I can't take back." She brought the recording to Samantha, who broke down sobbing. "He tried to do the right thing," she whispered. But the damage had been done. And now, the focus shifted to what would happen next. Hospital staff leaked that Martin's condition had worsened. A second surgery was needed. The family debated pulling him from life support. Smitty, learning of this from the rehab center, suffered a panic attack so severe it nearly hospitalized him. In his therapy sessions, Smitty finally admitted what had been tearing him apart, that he'd loved Martin. Not just as a friend, but something deeper, something he never named. And that was why the betrayal had destroyed him. He asked to visit the hospital. The request was denied at first. But then Samantha intervened. She spoke to Martin's sister. Explained everything. A week later, Smitty stood in Martin's hospital room. The machines beeped. The lights were low. He looked at the man he'd nearly killed, and for the first time in his life, he cried. Not quiet tears but guttural, painful sobs. "I'm sorry," he said, voice cracking. "I don't know if you'll ever hear this, but I'm sorry. I hated you so much for lying. But the truth is I was scared. Of you. Of what you meant to me." He stayed for 10 minutes. Then he left. 2 days later, Martin's fingers twitched. Just once. But it was enough. The monitors picked it up. Nurses rushed in. Samantha was called. Martin wasn't awake. Not fully. But his brain activity had shifted. The doctors were cautiously optimistic. The show ended that week with a single image, Martin's hand, resting on white sheets, fingers slightly curled, moving again. When Martin's hand twitched, it sent shockwaves through both the hospital and the production team. For the first time since the Dupree concert disaster, there was hope not just in the narrative, but in the cast. Production halted for a full day so the writers could reassess. Should Martin wake up? Or should this be his final moment? The cast was divided. Some felt the story had reached its natural end. Others believed redemption required confrontation, not coma. Samantha was consulted. As a pivotal character who had been physically caught in the chaos, her arc now revolved around forgiveness. "If he wakes up," she said quietly in the writer's room, "he has to earn every inch of forgiveness. From me. From Smitty. From himself." The next 2 episodes unfolded slowly, with heavy focus on Smitty's rehabilitation and emotional reckoning. His therapy sessions were no longer just cutaways, they became anchors. We saw him at his most vulnerable, joking with staff one moment, collapsing from guilt the next. The audience, once split in their perception of him, began to shift. Empathy returned. So did discomfort. The show refused to let anyone off the hook. Back in the hospital, Martin's vitals stabilized. A neurologist suggested that the emotional encounter with Smitty might have triggered a neurological response. Whatever the cause, Martin soon opened his eyes. Groggy, confused but awake. Samantha was the first to see him. He tried to speak. She stopped him. "Don't say anything," she whispered. "Just listen." What followed was a monologue the writers reportedly rewrote 10 times. Samantha recounted everything: her pain, her anger, her disbelief that the man who once made her feel safe was the same man who had struck her by accident. She told him about Kenny's message, about the truth slowly surfacing, about the pain of carrying a story too heavy for one person. Martin wept. Quiet, uncontrollable tears. And then he finally spoke. "I thought I was protecting him. I didn't know I was destroying you." Word of Martin's awakening made headlines. Public response was mixed. Some fans applauded his return. Others called it a ratings ploy. A few boycotted entirely. But the show's numbers continued to climb. Meanwhile, Smitty was discharged from the rehab center under strict supervision. His return to town was quiet, almost unrecognizable compared to his explosive exit. He avoided public places, refused interviews. He returned to his old apartment, not the one he shared with Martin, but the one he'd kept in secret. A safe space. It was Nicole who convinced him to face Martin again. She had found a voicemail, an old, deleted draft that Kenny had recorded but never sent. In it, Kenny begged Martin not to tell Smitty what happened the night before his death. "He won't survive it. He'll hate us both. Let me carry it. Please." Nicole played the message for Smitty. It broke him all over again. "He was protecting me," Smitty whispered. "And I made him bleed for it." They arranged the meeting in Martin's hospital room. It wasn't filmed dramatically. No background music. Just two men. One in a bed. The other standing, hands trembling. "I'm not here for closure," Smitty said. "I'm here because if I don't say it now, I'll carry it forever. I'm sorry. I should have listened. I should have asked." Martin nodded, but said nothing. Then, almost as an afterthought, Smitty added, "And I forgive you." Martin looked at him. "I don't. Not yet. But I want to." Their relationship didn't magically heal. But the seed was planted. Production took another bold step. They shifted the story to focus on communal trauma. The Dupree concert wasn't just an event, it had become a wound for everyone. Sharon Winger hosted a town hall on grief and conflict, inviting familiar faces to speak about what they'd lost. Samantha led a segment on restorative justice, which the network promoted as part of a companion campaign. Even background characters were brought into the spotlight. A stagehand who witnessed the confrontation came forward with a detail no one had included in the official report. Kenny had been at the venue the night before he died. Security footage confirmed it. But why? Nicole and Samantha dove deeper. They discovered a series of deleted text messages from Kenny to a blocked number. They traced it not to Martin, not to Smitty, but to a number once used by Ted Richardson. This revelation sparked immediate chaos in the writer's room. Ted had exited the show in disgrace months ago. Was it time to bring him back for a reckoning? The answer was yes. The final arc of the season began with Ted's unexpected return. He claimed he had nothing to do with Kenny's death, but evidence said otherwise. Flashbacks painted a different picture. Kenny had been blackmailed. And Ted was the one pulling the strings, trying to silence a rumor that Kenny knew about an offshore account linked to the Dupree estate. The audience watched in disbelief as the narrative flipped again. Martin had lied. Smitty had raged. But Ted? Ted had manipulated it all from the shadows. In the finale, Samantha, Smitty, and Martin came together one final time. This time, not to hurt, not to blame, but to uncover. They confronted Ted in front of a private board of family lawyers. The evidence was laid out. Kenny's messages. The bribes. The footage. Ted didn't deny it. "I didn't kill him," he said. "But I didn't save him either. I let him fall because it was easier than watching everything crumble." He was escorted out. Martin, now able to walk short distances, stood up. "You fell too, Ted. You just don't know it yet." The season ended with 3 silent montages. Samantha walking out of the hospital, the sun rising behind her. Smitty back in his apartment, holding Kenny's old journal. And Martin, alone on a bench, watching children play, unsure if he belonged in their world anymore.